Children, what a great opportunity we have. I didn't see it, you didn't see it, but here we are for a second year during public speaking school, which is a massive privilege, which is probably something that will never happen again. So, since we're on year 2 of public speaking school, I already know how great you all are at delivering your assignments. I already know that all these schools all year are going to be great. So before we start, I'm going to introduce our 3 speakers. Well, our 2 speakers who are here and then 1 replacement. And then we will go ahead and get started on our first public speaking school for Miss Merrigan's class of 2018. So giving our public talk will be first Miss Marilyn Trinellis. After Marilyn, our digging for historical gems part will be taken care of by Miss Gabby Blanchard. And last and certainly not least, we have to get a substitute for our historical reading. So I will be covering the historical reading given from page 268. Our original speaker ran into some travel issues, and so he is unable to do his part today. So, we're not going to waste any more time. Delivering our first public talk entitled Immigrants, let's give a warm welcome to our dear friend, Miss Mary Lynn Trinellis.
In the late 1800s, 25 million immigrants came to the U.S. They came from various countries such as Ireland, Germany, England, Sweden, Denmark, and other countries from Northern and Western Europe. Some of these immigrants were looking for work while others came to escape war. Some Jewish in the Eastern Europe came to the U.S. because they were hurt or killed because of their religion. Large numbers of Chinese immigrants came to find jobs in the late 1850s. Ellis Island and Angel Island were immigration stations. At an immigration station, government workers asked the immigrants where they were planning to live and work. Also at immigration stations, doctors examined the immigrants to make sure they did not have any diseases. Nearly all European immigrants were able to pass. Now, follow along as I read page 268, paragraph 1. After entering the United States, most immigrants settled near family or friends. Immigration communities in the big cities grew quickly. In some cities, whole neighborhoods were made up of a single ethnic group. An ethnic group is a group of people who share a culture or language. In ethnic neighborhoods, immigrants spoke their native languages, practiced their religion, and kept their country's customs. Immigration changed life in the 20th century. Many immigrants chose to live near people of their country because they could speak their native language and they could practice their religion together. They lived in small and unsafe apartments called tenements. Soon they moved to neighborhoods. These neighborhoods were mostly formed of the same ethnic group. Now, please follow along as I read page 269, paragraph 3. The United States today includes the great-grandchildren of immigrants who came in search of freedom and better lives in the 1800s and early 1900s. Immigration changed life in the 20th century because today we see people from all around the world in one classroom. Even though she's not in our classroom, Shaylee immigrated from China. Without immigration, nobody in this room would know Shaylee. Now follow along as I read page 268, paragraph 4. As neighborhoods changed, immigrants faced procedures from people who were frightened by unfamiliar language and customs. Employers liked to hire immigrants because they worked long hours, hard for little pay. For the same reason, some people worried about losing their job to immigrants and wanted immigration to stop. Immigrants had a hard life. They worked hard for long hours for very little pay. They barely had enough money to provide for their family and buy food for themselves and their family. Life was hard for immigrant, but they made it through. When you go home today, I want you all to ask your family about your family's heritage. Heritage is the ancestry or history about your family. Just think about how many people in this room have different heritages. Another definition for heritage is one thing passed down from generation to generation. That was the life of an immigrant. Thank you.
Marilyn, I thought that was another classic that you can add to your many parts that you've given here in a public speaking school. You know, with how Marilyn delivered that talk, there's a reason why last year she was one of the few selected to be part of the symposium. The way that she delivered her part, she came up here, she gave it as if it was a speech, she took the role of a teacher, and the information that she was giving to all of us in the audience was not only from the book, but you could tell that she did that extra research to make her talk stand out a little bit more. One thing that I really liked that she brought out about her talk at the end was when she said, you yourself, go home, ask your families about your own family heritage. So many subjects in school and so many concepts that we learn don't really connect to us as people. But what we went over today, talking about immigration, really does connect to each and every one of us as an individual, because it's important to know where you come from. So, Marilyn, I love how you gave that talk. I love how you give talks in general. You are a professional, and I don't think that it is out of the realm of possibility for you to think and to know that you're going to have a part on this year's assembly as well. So let's please give a big round of applause to Miss Marilyn Canellis. All right, introducing next, we're going to go over a part that allows you, the audience, to share your thoughts. Now, perhaps it's very easy to get the answers to those first two questions, but the last two, questions 3 and 4, are about you as individuals. It's about you making your own comment and you making sure that you have a spot.
Are you okay? Do you have a heart attack?
No, it's not my heart. It's my back. I spent all summer doing something. May, June, July, because I knew that I was going to start teaching 5th grade. So I was taking my shovel and I was digging for historical gems. But hey, I found an expert. I found our next student speaker who's going to deliver the part digging for historical gems. Let's please give a nice loud round of applause, as well as making sure our responses are loud and clear.
Yes.
As we introduce Miss Gabby Blanchard.
Hi, I am Miss Gabby Blanchard, and I will be giving you reading for historical gems. Can I get a reader for page 266, paragraph 3?
Immigrants were looking for work. Growing business like those of Andrew Carnegie and Josh D. Rockefeller offered plenty of jobs. Some immigrants also came to escape war or persecution. Persecution is unfair treatment or punishment. For example, many Jews in Eastern Europe were hurt or killed because of their religion. Jewish people hope to escape persecution by moving to the United States.
Can I get a person to answer this question? What is persecution, and give an example of it?
Persecution is harassment or bad treatment based on race, religion, or gender. When people are treated badly and harassed because of their religious beliefs, this is an example of persecution.
Thank you. My answer is, it was unfair treatment or punishment. Jewish hope to escape persecution by moving to the United States. Most immigrants found greater political freedom in America as well. Can I get a reader for page 267, paragraph 2?
Asians moved to the United States to find jobs too. Large numbers of Chinese immigrants first arrived on the West Coast in the 1850s. They also had to go through immigration stations such as Angel Island in San Francisco Bay. They faced more prejudice than European immigrants. Asian immigrants on Angel Island had to stay for weeks, months, or even years, being allowed to enter the United States. About 25% were forced to return to their home countries.
Thank you. Can someone answer this question? In what ways were Asian immigrants treated differently than immigrants from Europe?
Asians were treated differently and weren't allowed to go into the United States before the Europeans, and faced more procedures than Europeans. Asians had to go through immigration stations just to get to the United States.
Thank you, Katie. My answer is Asians moved to the United States to find jobs. Two. Large numbers of Chinese immigrants first arrived on the West Coast in the 1850s. Can I get someone to answer question 3? What does this week's reading teach you about history?
It teaches me how people immigrate, and the example is my dad. He came here from Pakistan. It took him 5 years of paperwork to get here and live with us. My mom was a U.S. resident. My mom sponsored him. So after all the paperwork and meetings, he was able to be with us. I learned that it requires a lot of time for immigrants to come and live in the U.S.
Thank you. Can I get someone else?
This week's reading teaches me about immigration and how Asians weren't treated better. Europeans were treated better than Asians. What I learned from my family is that I am Ireland, and my family immigrated here.
Thank you. Can I have one more person? Octavia.
This week's reading teaches me about history because it teaches me about how my mom and dad were immigrants and they moved to America from Europe.
Thank you. My answer is, I learned about immigrants. They went through immigrant stations such as Ellis Island in New York. Doctors examined the immigrants to be sure they didn't have diseases that could spread to others. Almost all European immigrants who came to the United States were allowed to enter. Can I get an answer from someone for number 4? What other historical gems did you find from this week's reading? Marco.
The question I focused on was, how did immigration and migration change the U.S. economy at the start of the 20th century? The Industrial Revolution had a tremendous impact on immigration to the United States. The Industrial Revolution led to the need for many workers. Since factories could produce many more products than an individual could produce by hand, we needed people to work in the factories. And my second question I focused on was, how did immigration and migration change life in the 20th century? Well, they had to travel miles and miles, and then they had to go through a lot of paperwork and meetings.
Thank you. Can I get a few more people?
I found that America's population went from 3.5 million to 9 million in just a few years during immigration. However, most Asian people were sent back and most Europeans got to stay.
Thank you. Get one more person. That's it.
In the late 1800s, people in many parts of the world decided to leave their homes and immigrate to the United States. This was called immigration. Those people came from Northern and Western Europe. Those are some other historical gems that I found.
Thank you. My answer is I learned that after entering the United States, most immigrants settled near families or friends. Immigrant communities in big cities grew quickly. In some cities, whole neighborhoods were made up of a single ethnic group. An ethnic group is a group of people who share a culture or language. In ethnic neighborhoods, immigrants spoke their native languages, practiced their religions, and kept their country's customs.
Boy, oh boy. Well, Gabby, I thoroughly enjoyed how you conducted that part. It was very organized, it was very well done. I loved how as soon as you got the answers to question 1 and 2, okay, we got it, let's move on. And when you got to questions 3 and 4 and the responses that you got from the audience, I am really impressed, because there's a lot that was shared in some of those responses that even though I've been with y'all for more than a year now, I didn't know. I didn't know that Fazila's dad was from Pakistan and that her mom was already a citizen in just the years of paperwork. I didn't know Ashlyn McConnell was Irish. The only Irishman I knew was Conor McGregor. But now I know that maybe Ashlyn and Conor McGregor are related. But maybe not, because Ashlyn doesn't like to fight and hurt people. But, learning about Aki's people from Europe, Margot's people from France, there's so much that we can learn from this topic, and I'm so appreciative not only to the audience but to Gabby for helping to bring that out. I really like the volume that Gabby displayed while she was doing her part, along with her paying attention to her counterpoint. And her counterpoint was visual contact. So what do we need to do to maintain visual contact? We have to look at those to whom we are speaking, allowing our eyes to meet for a few seconds, and seeing individuals and not the whole group. This is how I noticed that Gabby was doing that. She made sure that she called in as many different people as she could. Now, if she wasn't paying attention and she was just looking at y'all as a group, she probably would have called the same people 3-4 times in a row. But she made it a point to try and get someone different for every question. So Gabby, you handled that part like a pro. And not only am I appreciative, I'm sure the audience is appreciative as well. So we're going to give you a big round of applause. All right. So our last part will be the historical reading taken from page 268. I will do that. What you all should view this as is an example. If you ever get assigned the historical reading as to how to conduct it, I'm going to show you how I want you to hold your books and show you the volume that you need to go over. So enjoy yourselves. Living in a new country. After entering the United States, most immigrants settled near family or friends. Immigrant communities in big cities grew quickly. In some cities, whole neighborhoods were made up of a single ethnic group. An ethnic group is a group of people who share a culture or language. In ethnic neighborhoods, immigrants spoke their native languages, practiced their religions, and kept their country's customs. Immigrants' lives were not easy. Some worked in dangerous steel mills. Others had jobs in noisy and dirty factories where they sewed clothing or made thread. Nearly all worked long hours for low pay, making so little money they could barely buy food for themselves or their families. Many newcomers lived in tenements. A tenement is a poorly built apartment building. Tenements were crowded and unsafe. They often had no windows or running water. Several families might live in one small apartment. Hard times for immigrants. As neighborhoods changed, immigrants faced prejudice from people who were frightened by unfamiliar languages and customs. Employers liked to hire immigrants because they worked hard for little pay. For the same reason, some people worried about losing their jobs to immigrants and wanted immigration stopped. All right. So, that was a very quick public speaking school, but you know the nature of it. We adjusted some things from last year in terms of having our public talk be a little shorter. And another thing that I noticed is that you all are already showing expertise, and it's our first one, so a year of doing this has really paid off, because maybe last year when we started, it was a little rocky to get public speaking school done in time. Now we can just fly through it. So, I think that you all did very well, and I think that anytime we do very well or just have public speaking school, we know that that time is a very special time.